Good evening, and welcome to Third Church of Christ Scientist in New York City. Let's begin with singing hymn number 7575. God comes with succor speedy to those who suffer wrong, to help the poor and needy and bid the weak be strong. He comes to break oppression, to set the captive free, to take away transgression and rule in equity. Number 75. I'll read from the Bible and from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. The subject of this evening's readings is government, the Bible, Psalms. The kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. God be merciful unto us, and bless us, and cause his face to shine upon us, that thy way may be known upon earth, thy saving health among all nations. Let the people praise thee, O God, let all the people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon earth. Let the people praise thee, O God, let all the people praise thee. 1 Kings. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, "Ask what I shall give thee." And Solomon said, Thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or how to come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people, that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, thy so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, Because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Then came there 2 women that were harlots unto the king, and stood before him. And the one woman said, O my lord, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we 2 in the house. And this woman's child died in the night, because she overlaid it. And she arose at midnight, and took my son from beside me, while thine handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son which I did bear. And the other woman said, Nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king. Then said the king, The one saith, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead. And the other saith, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living. And the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in 2, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. Then the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do judgment. Isaiah. Unto us a child is born, Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Mark. And straightway in the morning the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council, and bound Jesus and carried him away, and delivered him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, Art thou the king of the Jews? And he answering said unto him, Thou sayest it. Luke. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with them derided him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he be Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, and saying, If thou be the king of the Jews, save thyself. And a superscription also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost not thou fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we received the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. Matthew. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Luke. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothe the grass which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. I'll now read correlative passages from the Christian Science textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Like our nation, Christian Science has its Declaration of Independence. God has endowed man with inalienable rights, among which are self-government, reason, and conscience. Man is properly self-governed only when he is guided rightly and governed by his Maker, divine truth and love. The term science, properly understood, refers only to the laws of God and to his government of the universe, inclusive of man. From this it follows that businessmen and cultured scholars have found that Christian Science enhances their endurance and mental powers, enlarges their perception of character, gives them acuteness and comprehensiveness, and an ability to exceed their ordinary capacity. The human mind imbued with this spiritual understanding becomes more elastic, is capable of greater endurance, escapes somewhat from itself, and requires less repose. A knowledge of the science of being develops the latent abilities and possibilities of man. It extends the atmosphere of thought, giving mortals access to broader and higher realms. It raises the thinker into his native air of insight and perspicacity. Every function of the real man is governed by the divine mind. The human mind has no power to kill or to cure, and it has no control over God's man. The divine mind that made man maintains his own image and likeness. The human mind is opposed to God and must be put off, as St. Paul declares. All that really exists is the divine mind and its idea, and in this mind, the entire being is found harmonious and eternal. The straight and narrow way is to see and acknowledge this fact, yield to this power, and follow the leadings of truth. That mortal mind claims to govern every organ of the mortal body, we have overwhelming proof. But this so-called mind is a myth and must, by its own consent, yield to truth. It would wield the scepter of a monarch, but it is powerless. The immortal divine mind takes away all its supposed sovereignty and saves mortal mind from itself. The author has endeavored to make this book the Aesculapius of mind as well as of body, that it may give hope to the sick and heal them, although they know not how the work is done. Truth has a healing effect, even when not fully understood. When man is governed by God, the ever-present mind who understands all things, man knows that with God all things are possible. The only way to this living truth, which heals the sick, is found in the science of divine mind, as taught and demonstrated by Christ Jesus. Mind's government of the body must supersede the so-called laws of matter. Controlled by the divine intelligence, man is harmonious and eternal. Whatever is governed by a false belief is discordant and mortal. The divine mind includes all action and volition, and man in science is governed by this mind. It is the province of spiritual sense to govern man. Material, erring human thought acts injuriously both upon the body and through it. Mind, supreme over all its formations and governing them all, is the central sun of its own systems of ideas, the life and light of all its own vast creation, and man is tributary to divine mind. Whatever is governed by God is never for an instant deprived of the light and might of intelligence and life. The understanding that the ego is mind and that there is but one mind or intelligence begins at once to destroy the errors of mortal sense and to supply the truth of immortal sense. This understanding makes the body harmonious. It makes the nerves, bones, brain, etc. servants instead of masters. If man is governed by the law of divine mind, his body is in submission to everlasting life and truth and love. Whatever enslaves man is opposed to the divine government. Truth makes man free. You may know when first truth leads by the fewness and faithfulness of its followers. Thus it is that the march of time bears onward freedom's banner. The powers of this world will fight and will command their sentinels not to let truth pass the guard until it subscribes to their systems. But science, heeding not the pointed bayonet, marches on. There is always some tumult, but there is a rallying to truth's standard. The history of our country, like all history, illustrates the might of mind and shows human power to be proportionate to its embodiment of right thinking. A few immortal sentences breathing the omnipotence of divine justice have been potent to break despotic fetters and abolish the whipping post and slave market. But oppression neither went down in blood, nor did the breath of freedom come from the cannon's mouth. Love is the liberator. Man, governed by immortal mind, is always beautiful and grand. The universe of spirit is peopled with spiritual beings, and its government is divine science. Man is the offspring not of the lowest, but of the highest qualities of mind. Man understands spiritual existence in proportion as his treasures of truth and love are enlarged. Mortals must gravitate Godward. Their affections and aims grow spiritual. They must near the broader interpretations of being and gain some proper sense of the infinite in order that sin and mortality may be put off. This scientific sense of being, forsaking matter for spirit, by no means suggests man's absorption into deity and the loss of his identity, but confers upon man enlarged individuality, a wider sphere of thought and action, a more expansive love, a higher and more permanent peace. St. Paul says, "Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling." Jesus said, "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Let's pray together silently for a few moments, and then pray aloud together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Let's sing hymn number 178, 178. Love is life's true crown and glory. Love, the splendor of the light. Truly is God's counsel gentle. Truly all his ways are bright. Jesus knew the law of kindness, healing mind and heart of blindness, and in heavenly wisdom taught, holy works of love he wrought. Number 178. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 12 noon and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. All services are held in person and online, and all are welcome. Third Church offers Sunday school classes in person and online for children and teens. These free one-hour classes are available each Sunday. At Sunday school, students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of prayer. For more information on times and classes, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. The members of this church invite you to an evening of inspiration, Good Friday, April 18th at 7:30 p.m. Brian Webster will speak on the topic, Our Walk to Emmaus. The talk will take place in the church edifice at 583 Park Avenue at 63rd Street. Organ music will begin at 7:20 p.m. The talk will be streamed live on our website, thirdchurchnyc.com, with simultaneous Spanish translation. After the talk, you are invited to remain for a question and answer session with Brian Webster. Replays in English and Spanish are available of this church's Christmas Eve talk by Bobby Lewis, a Christian Science practitioner, on the topic, Make Room at the Inn. Please visit our website, thirdchurchnyc.com. Other inspirational talks are also available on the website. This meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that prove God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to speak, press *6 and wait until your line is unmuted. Please speak directly into the microphone of your phone. Your message will be easier to hear if you do not use the speaker function. And to avoid feedback, please have only one device on at a time. If you're watching via Zoom, you can choose the raise your hand icon or unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you for your readings. There's a passage in Science and Health that goes something like, entirely separate from the belief and dream of material living is the life divine. The sense of government, it is a beguiling question. If we look at it from a material point of view, with materialistic laws, and it's very challenging. But I think the point of your readings, and clearly came across also in the hymns that we sang tonight, is that the true government, I guess, would start with self-government, and self-government starts with our sense of reality, our sense of ourselves, and our relation to God. Christian Science teaches that God is love, and once I testified that love was the intelligence of the universe, and to have that sense of God's government, of the government of love, which was the conclusion in a couple of the hymns, elevates and gives us hope and direction for self-government. And you read from the desk of Christian Science has its Declaration of Independence, and that there are rights, individual rights of reason, self-government, and conscience, I think it was. We have to exercise these rights and claim them, and we find the path in the writings of the Bible and in the teachings of on the Mount, teachings of the Sermon on the Mount, and this is the place to seek a peaceful sense of government, to work on and obtain self-government. To be guided rightly, one has to be guided by God and in the teachings. And that's where our peace, our sense of true government, of unvarying love and goodwill will come from. And it's very arousing to think of these rights, to claiming these rights in the presence of that law, the law of love, and to find the humility of looking to God and listening and being obedient to the guidance that we get.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that previous testifier and your readings. Um, one of my favorite passages in prose works Mrs. Eddy has is, she says, you must feel and know. She doesn't say just know, she must feel and know that God alone governs all harmoniously. And then she goes on and says, whatever would dethrone, and whatever would dethrone, would oppose that government, is an unjust usurper of the throne of the controller of all mankind. What an incredible metaphor and thought, that God is governing us, no other government. We're under God's government alone. And it's been very helpful for me knowing that. I think one of the areas of government that we all have to contend with, I certainly had to contend a lot with it, is taxation. And it seems that the way the tax laws are written, if you don't collect receipts and keep track of them, you're in deep trouble. And I didn't. So many, as a young family, and so many things to contend with a number of decades ago. I didn't, and of course the IRS is not going to let you is not going to ignore that, and so I ended up being called in and finding that I owed them with penalties and interest, a huge amount of money. And I didn't know what to do, but I was just trying to know the truth. The punishment is because you didn't do the bookkeeping. You didn't collect enough receipts. At the time, I had hired an accountant to help me. And I remember I had a number of diaries around, just diaries around, and he said, that's great. So what you do in this case is you take one of these diaries from a previous year or something, and you put on all kinds of notes about what you spent on. You put it on the windowsill and let it get dirty and damp, and then in other words, you falsify your records. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't care if they can take everything I have, my family, a house. They can't have my honesty, okay? I'm not doing that. I remember going into a stationery store right here, a block away from Grand Central Station, and a woman came in while I was waiting at the register asking for a tax book. What'd she mean? It was an old blank diary that she could then falsify and hand into the government. So I wasn't going to do that. And my accountant says, well, can I have the books? I said, sure, they're yours. He had a client who was in trouble. But so I ended up, because I wouldn't do that, I ended up with a huge, tens of thousands of dollars that I was owing them. There's no way I could pay that. And even at one point, it even thought of getting a mortgage on my house, and another mortgage on my house, and paying it off that way. And I found out, oh no, it would just go on. So I said no. Well, one day, I was in the IRS's office talking to this woman who I dealt with, and she said, well, I suppose you know, Mr. Henke, that in another year or so, you're not going to owe us anything. Oh, no? Why is that? I didn't know that, I said. Well, Congress had passed a law that they had 10 years to collect overdue taxes, and after that it was completely dismissed. And all that money was completely dismissed because I refused to be dishonest, and I refused, and I was going to trust the truth. So if we trust the truth, I'm so grateful that that's what we're governed by. We're not governed by human material laws. That doesn't mean we break the law, but it means that we know that we're under God's government, and if we abide by that government, God will always protect us. So thank you.
Thank you.
During the past week or so, I've been working with several articles by Ralph Wagers, who was a teacher and practitioner out of Chicago, and for a time associate editor, and held many positions in the Mother Church. And two of those articles, I think, are in the Classic Christian Science article, one of the volumes. And I was sent many years ago a talk he gave at the BA in the early 70s about the healing practice and how we need to be better healers. And one of his main points was that the body, when you consider the body as physical, you have to identify that with the metaphysical, or with the spiritual and the divine. You don't identify your body with the mortal and the material. And he makes a distinction, as does Mrs. Eddy in several places, between the body and matter. When you identify the body with the metaphysical, with the spiritual, the divine then coincides with the human and heals the body. At no point is the real body material. And that's just a thumbnail sketch. It's a 20-page talk by Mr. Wagers. And I was thinking about that in terms of the kingdom of heaven, which were a part of the readings tonight and are a part of our lesson on substance. We appear to be in the world, and Mrs. Eddy says in Atonement at Eucharist, the worldly man is always at the beck and call of error. She might say matter, but one of them. And then she ends that paragraph with the zigzag course, so it's easy to find that in the concordances. And I was thinking, well, we are in the world as human beings. I mean, there's just no question about that. But if we identify ourselves with the kingdom of heaven, and in the lesson this week is Mrs. Eddy's definition in the glossary, the kingdom of heaven takes us from the errors of the world, the materiality of the world, the sin, sickness, and death of the world, so that we are in the world but not of the world, and it heals worldliness without making us ascetics. And so I'm grateful for that insight. I'm grateful for the good thinkers in Christian Science, and I'm grateful for the archives of all the articles from the 19th century on, and all the wonderful articles and editors from the past. Thank you for your readings.
Thank you.
My father, when he retired in a farm. So the farm was in a valley. And in the valley, up in the mountains, the corporation water that comes, the shop people, they control that water. So for us to come to the valley, the bathing room, we don't get water. So what we do is there's a river flowing by in a farm. So we go and bathe in that river. So one day, one guy, people come on daily wages to work in the paddy field and, for work. One day, one youngster came asking for some daily wage. So my father asked him to cut some grass work. Then it was lunchtime, and my mother gave him lunch. And then I said, let me go and have a shower and come. I went to the river, I bathed, and I came. Then my mother went. When she went, she likes to lie down straight and let the water flow through her straight. And she would hold with one hand, because she used to wear a nose ring, and hold that and lie down. Then, as she was lying down, closing her eyes, she felt something, disturbing. So she took off her hand, and her chain was lifted, gold chain. And this guy took the chain and he ran away. So my mother shouted, called me, and I ran behind. I couldn't get him. So we informed the police. After 2 days, the postman comes with a package. So my father saw the package, and it was addressed to my uncle. So my father said, this is for him, maybe medicines. Let me take it to him. And he took the package there. When they opened the package, they found the chain. So my father recognized the chain, and he brought it home. In the meantime, the police caught the boy, and they and they said, he is saying that he has sent the chain back by post. He said, yes, he has sent it by post. Then they were going to arrest him. Then I told them, don't arrest him because he has sent the chain, so let him. So the police went away. Then I asked the guy, I said, why would you do that? He said, see, your mother gave me food to eat, lunch. So while I was eating, I saw your mother bathing, and I saw the chain, and I was tempted. So that is why I took it, and I ran. The next day, I thought about it. I said, they were very good to me, and why would I do this? So, and that is how I sent it by post. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the beautiful readings. It reminds me the wonderful the hymn which we sang just in the beginning. God comes with succor speedy to those who suffer wrong. I'm so grateful that in the beginning, when I was learning and knowing the Christian Science, the concept of living truths, the truth of being, which destroys the erroneous beliefs, false notions, false teachings. I'm very grateful for the wonderful concept of teachings of Christian Science. As previous testifier also mentioned that our lives, sometimes we are deeply engulfed with the wrong, erroneous, false teachings of the worldly teachings. And also I'm grateful that one of the testifiers also has mentioned, we are in the world, but we are not of the world. That is a wonderful concept of knowing our spiritual nature and the spiritual living, moving, having our being. That is a wonderful concept, and which brought some number of healings to our lives. I'm so grateful. It is the Christian Science, one of the passages in Christian Science which states, Mrs. Eddy, Christian Science brings to the body the sunlight of truth, which invigorates and which corrects even false beliefs. And it also, further it says, neutralizes the error. Neutralizes error is correcting the errors, whatever we have learned from the false beliefs or false notions of the world. This is the greatest truth which leads to salvation to our life. I'm grateful for ever since I came into the fold of Christian Science, the wonderful teachings, wonderful concepts, and the wonderful healings which I had ever since. I am indeed grateful for this greatest blessings to mankind to correct and separate from the worldly erroneous beliefs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for your testimonies, your support, your prayers, and your presence at this meeting. Let's conclude with singing of hymn number 204. I'll read the whole poem. O Father, thy kingdom is come upon earth. Thou rulest in all thy creation. Thou sendest thy witnesses, telling thy worth, to call and entreat every nation with news of thy mighty salvation, with news of thy mighty salvation. They lift up a light amid shadows of fear, and love is thy banner above them. No trouble shall touch them. No foes that appear shall e'er from their loyalty move them. 'Tis thou dost uphold and approve them. 'Tis thou dost uphold and approve them. They go in thy strength, and they speak in thy name, with power of thy promise forth-faring, and during the battle the victory claim. Their trust in thy truth is their daring, salvation to all men declaring. Salvation to All Men, Declaring, number 204.